So the Sony reptilians have sprinkled some day-old donut crumbs for us to feast on. As rat YouTubers, we lure ourselves to the crumbs of life. So I have thoughts on this new 16mm 1.8 and the 400 to 800 bazooka lens that ended World War VII.
All I want is the perfect camera. All I want is the perfect camera.
So we're on the Sony ZV-E1 with the Zeiss Batis 18mm 2.8 with Catalyst Browse 5% crop, the Stabe Panasonic level. So here's the deal. 16mm 1.8. I used to have the 20mm 1.8 until I realized it was flat and clinical, and I saw the Batis and I was like, oh, okay, can't be using that anymore. Even though it had more background blur, I think it was lighter. No, this is lighter. But this new one, 16mm 1.8, that's light. This new one kind of kills off two birds with one stone. The Sony 20mm and the Viltrox 16mm. We'll get to you. Oh boy. So 20mm 1.8 was pretty light, but clinical and flat. So I went with the Zeiss Batis 18mm 2.8, even though I lose like 14 stops. Got no background blur whatsoever. We're actually stopped down to 24 right now, even worse. I need Zeiss in my life. I'm not shooting a clinical Sony body with clinical Sony lenses. It's just, I can't do it. I can't bring myself to it. But this new 16mm, it'll be slightly lighter than this, more background blur, as you see the Viltrox. Like, that's kind of what you're getting. It kind of looks better. It might be sharper and a little more background tones. But, like, is that worth it to disrupt your field? Let us just say a prayer for Viltrox, though, right now. The 16mm 1.8, that thing was so heavy. I was like, who's going to use that? Like, yeah, it looked cool. It was kind of nice. A lot of you preferred it when I compared it to the Batis, but hot damn, you've been debunked. Imagine a company just like completely making something that you have irrelevant overnight. You'd be like, wow. Because it's like similar price and way heavier. Like, you would never get that Viltrox lens ever. Even the Stabe will be better with the Sony. If I wasn't such a lens snob, I would totally be looking at this. That's a fun focal length. I wished it was 16mm. When they made the 14mm 1.8, I was like, why didn't you make a 15 or 16? The 14 is just too wide. You took it 1mm too far. It was too much, and it was so heavy, and the bulbous element. They fixed all that. So it's like, well done, but it's flat hell. It's 15 elements, 3 ED elements in those. Whereas this is 11. I don't know if it even has ED glass. I can't find. Zeiss has weird namings. It's like special element, floating this. Like, I have no idea what you're doing. So I have a whole video coming on Zeiss's new announcements. Just side rant. You already had a manual focus line that nobody wanted. You had like 2 or 3 of them. You come back and bringing that to my hell? No. So even though the 16mm 1.8 will be lighter than this, cheaper, more background blur, sharper, and I have no other things to add on to that. Better low light. That was the thing. Come on. It's a Zeiss Batis. What are we doing here? You go for the Zeiss. It's autofocusing. It's Zeiss. It's not even an option. But cool story for the scrubs. When it comes to this 400 to 800, Tony 6.3 to 8, don't quote me on that. I was just hoping, because Nikon came out and they're like, look, we have telephoto, that's ours now. We have a 400mm prime, 600, several options between like super expensive or budget, but still really good 800mm primes. Like, they have everything you'd ever want. And I was thinking, Sony, you need a prime to compete with that. You need like a 800mm Tony 8 prime. That would be like even lighter than the Nikon. Then you'd be like, holy shit, Sony's in the game here. But they only have zooms, and zooms are fine. Most people want the zoom, but it's so much heavier and worse quality. I don't see it. Like, I had the Sony 200 to 600. That thing was heavy as hell and front heavy. So at least this new one, apparently they've reworked that, so it should even feel lighter. Even though it's heavier than that 200 to 600, it should be better. It shouldn't like sway in the wind, because when you're holding, it's always like this front heavy thing. Any little movement ends up super exaggerated. It's insane. So it's like you can't do that. This little thing here you're seeing ends up being like in your shot a boat disaster. So like this new lens should fix that, and you have more reach. Decent little option. Like it's expensive though. It's like, isn't it $1,000 more than the 200 to 600? I don't know, man. It's a little teleconverter on that, and but then that extends it even further out. So yeah, it's a decent option, but like, why didn't you make the Prime? It's the 800mm Tony 8, super light, or 600mm 5.6. Where's that? Lightness is the game, and that's what makes equipment fun. This is why I have the ZVE1. It's so light. It's like lighter than Micro Four Thirds. I'm having fun here. That dog, he's having fun later on with some kibble. You know what I mean? So it's like lightness is fun, and that's why I have the Nikon 600mm Prime, and that's why I just bought the 600mm Tony 11 for Canon. Imagine how light that thing is going to be, and it's so fun. I had the 800mm Tony 11 from Camera Canada. We reviewed it, and now 600's even lighter. That's going to be a joke fun. I'll be out in nature every day, all day. Is that a cloud of smoke? What the hell happened? I'm going to be poisoned by asbestos. That cloud almost hit me. So both of those lenses are like typical decent Sony offerings. They're good, they're sharp, they're fast, like amazing performance. It's just, I need more than that. I like the lightweight primes. You went super lightweight on the 16mm, cool, and then the heaviest thing ever made. That, like, that's the wrong direction for me. So like, I would love to see some Sony wildlife primes, and then maybe you consider going back into Sony for wildlife. But Nikon stole your thunder, and so did Canon. Panasonic might even start stealing some rain. I doubt it, but they could. I don't think affiliate links are even available, but if I have some, I'll toss them to you. But I wouldn't get them just because I'm a 3D pop snob, and I see it. I have 3 reviews coming. A company sent me 3 of their lenses. They're all flat and clinical. They're all glorious, and I'll show you that. And I compare them to my Zeiss or Voigtlander versions of those focal lengths, and you see it. Like, I see it. I swear I do. I'm not in an insane asylum where my hands are tied and people are feeding me sandwiches. I'm allowed out on weekends, and I can see the pop, and you can see it. It's just, you switch to a Zeiss, and it's like, oh, whoa, man. Like, just, the background just goes flat immediately. It's like certain lenses just cannot render the different shades of black to white, and then the color differences, all the different tones of green. It's more than just 3D pop. It's color fidelity. It's all this stuff that a good lens has. And that's not what Sony does at all. It's just clinical modern stuff, and that's the way our world's heading. So save up on your EF glass. I'm gonna bring the Tudnet back. Huh? 2.8. So 1.8 would be even more ridiculous. You would be getting the 16mm for vlogging, and honestly, like 1.8 is too much background blur. Really. Like even this, sometimes I see it and I'm like, that's a bit too blurry. I should have stopped it down to 24. Sometimes I do 5.6. I've been known to do it. So like 1.8, it's a bit much, but then in the studio, 16mm 1.8, that'd look pretty fun. That'd be fun. That's why the 20mm was a sweet spot lens. You could vlog with it. It was just wide enough, and then it was also just close enough to like the 24mm area to be like YouTube studio style. It wasn't a 1.4, but then it would have been heavy. So I think the 16mm better than the 20, maybe. It might be more fun to be that wide, but I don't know, that 20 still has a spot. It's like more versatile, it's closer to normal. whereas 16 mils like ultra goofy wide. I don't know, man. There's choices to be made down below through my affiliate links after Bitcoin gets donated. Sony Stabe. Subscribe for my understanding.